Call the meeting to order. Welcome. I'd like to call the September 2nd, 2021 regular meeting of the Encinitas Planning Commission to order at 6:01. Please turn off your cell phones or set them to vibrate. And also please mute your microphone unless speaking. Agendas for this meeting are available online. Let the record show that all 5 planning commissioners are present. And then we move on to the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Oh, as soon as we get the, there we go. Oh, there's the flag. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States
of America
and to the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. There we go. Let's see. Tonight's meeting is being conducted utilizing teleconferencing and electronic means consistent with the state of California executive orders. The public may only participate in the meeting electronically. A copy of the Planning Commission meeting packet may be viewed by the public at the city's webpage at https://encinitas.gov/government/agendas-webcasts. Tonight, we've modified the procedure for public comment slightly, so I'll go through that too. Public comment may be submitted via email. Tonight's agenda describes the process in detail, but I will summarize it. Written public comments to the Planning Commission must be submitted via email by 3 p.m. on the day of the meeting. That's 3 p.m. Now, it used to be, I think, 2 p.m. So you have an extra hour. And will be forwarded to the entire Planning Commission. To make oral public comments during the meeting, including oral communications, consent calendar, and regular items, you must register by 4 p.m. And that used to be 2 p.m. Now it's all the way to 4 p.m. So again, 2 more hours on the day of the meeting to join the electronic meeting. Members of the public speaking to the commission will not be shown on video. They will be able to watch and listen and to speak when called upon. Each speaker may address the commission for up to 3 minutes or in accordance with the time period established by the chair. And it should be noted that you do not need to register just to watch the meeting. So the next item is oral communications. We start each meeting with oral communications where anyone wishing to speak on a topic not on tonight's agenda may request to do so by following the process as previously described. Dina, do we have any oral communications?
Yes, we do. We have 2 speakers this evening, and first up is Gerald Kessler.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Joe.
Okay. I would like to speak today about the environmental nightmare housing Staver project on Melba Road in Encinitas that is slated for 31 homes on 6.6 acres and take down a grove of mature Torrey pines in addition to 173 other trees and 30 other smaller trees and native shrubs, and demo a historical home built in 1938, all based on the density bonus law AB 2345. I recently learned the city plans to remove all but one of the mature trees on Melba Road tree line, which serves as our tree canopy for many years, just to widen the road less than a foot and to assist with overflow parking from the Staver project. We met with the city traffic engineer and they have not been open to the options of traffic calming based on the neighbors' ideas. One neighbor had volunteered to donate a part of their property on the south side of Melba in order to spare the trees. I've seen other major cities spare the trees when developing new housing projects. We beg the city to preserve the Encinitas redwoods, our neighborhood tree canopy, which aligns with an Encinitas current approved climate action plan. I also heard that Brian Staver continues to manipulate the residents by changing plans from original 1-story homes to 2-story houses that would look into their homes in order to get boundary trees removed from the neighboring homes. He also has approached at least 2 vulnerable senior citizens, long-standing tax-paying residents, about property lines, trying to manipulate them, allowing his drainage from their homes to run through their private property, or telling them he will put up a wall on their property line that has not been adequately surveyed recently, so property lines are in question. I'm not even sure he has a permit to do this, and no one has answered me from the city. This is not the way to treat seniors in the community in their golden years, when they simply want to age peacefully in place. He's forcing them to hire attorneys, which can be cost prohibitive. This is not okay. We also learned from our attorney that the soil needs to be tested further. It has already been shown that there are many toxins in the soil from many years of greenhouses on the property. And before any movement of the soil, which causes dust and is dangerous to the surrounding residents and Oak Crest school children. Oak Crest Park, which is adjacent, sitting next to the housing project, is home to rare and endangered species such as the California gnatcatcher, iconic Delmar manzanita trees, and Baccharis vanessa shrubs. The Staver project property also sits next to the last rural horse farm in Encinitas, the Boys and Girls Club and Garden, along with Oak Crest Middle School and the Encinitas Community Center. This property is an ideal location for open space and preservation for Encinitas, possibly an annex for the botanical garden serving as an outdoor STEM classroom. We have at least had 5 housing projects crammed in the neighborhood within miles of each other, few miles, in the last few years with no consideration for open space to balance the scales. I have asked the city and the community to I've asked the city to help the community and assist with funding that could be available, such as grants for soft infrastructure. Soft infrastructure refers to all the institutions that maintain the economic, health, social, environmental, and cultural standards of the country. This includes educational programs, official statistics, parks and recs facilities, law enforcement, and emergency services. Please assist the community with fundraising and grants for acquiring the Staver property from the trust. It's the right thing to do for the community. Thanks for listening.
Okay. Our next speaker is Keith Harrison. He signed up also for item 8A. Just want to make sure Keith was also wanting to speak to an item off the agenda. Is he logged in, Dave?
Who?
Keith Harrison.
Yep, I'm here.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, Keith. Yeah, Keith. Just to confirm, you're speaking on both item 8A and oral comments.
Correct. Is that okay?
That is fine.
I'm not.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks.
We just want to get you in the right slot. Sometimes it's confusing when registering. So go ahead.
This is my first time participating in a public meeting remotely, and so I thought I probably should take the opportunity, and I might make sure I don't goof it up for when it really matters. But yeah, okay. I wanted to express my concern with our CPP process and ask the commission to consider whether or not it warrants some amendments, and in particular, I feel like the fact that we don't require applicants to have the CPP meeting early in their review process with the city leads to issues. I once had a planner here at City Encinitas tell me after the applicant had spent a year in process before they had their CPP, and I had issues. And she actually said to me, well, they don't want to make any changes because they're too far along in the process.
Yeah.
And it just goes against the spirit of the CPP. And I think it's really twofold, right? You have the applicant who wants to work out all of the issues with staff as much as they can before they bring it before their neighbors. But you end up with that problem with they don't want to make any changes. And then also on the staff side, the staff becomes somewhat pregnant on the feedback that they've given the applicant during that long process, so that it's difficult for them to come off of the things that maybe they've told the applicant over that period of time. So I believe that the CPP meeting should be required to be, somewhere after the first submittal, maybe after the second submittal, but certainly not after the third submittal. And the common complaint to this will be, well, but what if things change materially because we haven't got all of staff's feedback? Well, there's no reason that you can't have another CPP meeting if that happens, if there's material changes. But otherwise, I think that we're really doing the community a disservice and kind of wasting their time with the CPP meeting. So thank you for consideration.
Okay, very good. And I don't know whether now is the time to ask staff, or whether when we talk about agenda item or future agenda items at the end of the meeting, is that where we would add it to the agenda? So I took a note. Keith, I was a proponent of the CPP back when it started. I think I first was part of the presentation back in 1998. So it's definitely something near and dear to my heart. So we'll talk about it later in the agenda here, but not discuss it per se. We'll talk about agendizing something.
Excellent, thank you.
Okay, so the next item is changes to the agenda. Are there any changes to the published agenda?
There are no changes.
Okay. Anything we wanted to do with 2B, because it was, wouldn't that be a change to the agenda? Or do we just not approve it and continue it?
However you'd like to do that. It was noted on the web as well as, or the memo was posted to
the agenda. We can just handle as part of the consent calendar then. So no changes to the agenda.
Cool.
Okay, we now move on to the main part of our agenda. The main part of our agenda is normally divided into consent calendar, regular agenda, and commission reports. Next item is consent calendar. First up are the items on the consent calendar. These items are considered non-controversial or routine in nature. All consent calendar items are typically voted on collectively in a single motion without any staff presentation, public comment, or commission deliberation. However, if a member of the public or a commissioner has requested a consent item be heard, the item can be removed from the consent calendar and be given an individual hearing. Items removed from the consent calendar will be heard individually immediately after the consent calendar vote. On tonight's consent calendar, there are 3 items. Item 6A, approval of the minutes for March 18th, 2021. Item 6B, approval of the minutes for meeting of May 6th, 2021. And item 6C, approval of the minutes for the regular planning or for the meeting of June 3rd, 2021. Are there anybody want to poll? Are there any public comments on any of these?
There are not.
Okay. Commissioners, any commissioners want to pull an item? I'd like to pull 2B and then just handle it separately right afterwards.
Sure.
So if not, I'll entertain a motion.
Right?
What's that now?
6B.
6B, yeah. So pull 6B. So on items 6A and 6C, do I have a motion?
I move for approval.
A second.
Okay. Call the question.
Okay, Chair Ehlers,
Aye.
Vice Chair Doyle,
Aye.
Commissioner Sharon,
Aye.
okay, and Commissioner Dalton.
Aye.
And then Commissioner Ryan, will be abstaining since she was not at the meeting. Or is that how that would work? Or she was not at those 3 meetings? Are those?
I think I abstain if I'm not at the meeting.
Okay, that's what it is.
Barry, I see Barry nodding yes, so I'll take that to be an agreement. Okay. So that's a 4-4 and 1 abstain.
Correct.
Okay. On item 6B, I know there was a memo sent out today, but when I looked at the memo, it didn't look like there are a couple issues on 6B. When I looked back at my notes, we had already approved May 6th minutes at a previous meeting. And at that same meeting, there were May 20th minutes that there was Commissioner Sherrod's vote was recorded both yes and no on one item. So it was an obvious error. And that's what we were trying to get fixed. And so I think the memo came out right before the beginning of the meeting, maybe an hour or 2. And it explained this. But the attachment to the memo didn't look like minutes to me, Dina. So that's why I don't think we can go ahead and approve 6B for the March 20th, or sorry, May 20th, 2021 minutes, because I don't think we got to see them yet.
Okay, yeah.
So,
I was
so
using a template that someone had given me, and I didn't realize that there was more to the
Yeah.
memo sheet than they gave me. So
well, regardless, we would need the minutes for May 21st, 20th,
to see
20th,
the
yeah,
correct- see the
to approve
correction.
them.
Okay.
So what I would do is, I suppose continue. No. Well, it'll just come back in the future. I think it's a no action on this at this point. So
Okay.
no action on 6B, and you'll submit future minutes for May 20th, 2021 to a future planning commission.
Excellent. Okay.
Okay.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay. Next up is a regular agenda item.
Bruce, do we need a motion for that 6B thing?
I don't think so. I think Barry, I see a nod no from Barry, so I'm assuming that we can just no action.
Yeah, that's fine.
So, okay, with that, I guess we've handled the items removed from the consent calendar, and now we're on to the regular agenda. And tonight there is one item. Item 8A, Sunshine Gardens. Permit multi 003629-2020. This is a public hearing to consider a design review permit, density bonus, boundary line adjustment, and coastal development permit to allow for the demolition of existing commercial structures, adjustment of property lines, and to construct a 140-unit residential development made up of 119 market rate and 21 low income, with leasing and indoor and outdoor amenity spaces, signage, grading, and landscape improvements. The project is located at 155 Quail Gardens Drive and 628 and 630 Encinitas Boulevard in Old Encinitas. Are there any disclosures? None? Okay. And so we begin with a staff report presented by, Anna, are you presenting or?
So actually, I'm going to reintroduce, I introduced her once before, Patty Anders. She's a contract planner who's been assisting with the housing element sites. And I am going to pass it on to Patty to do the presentation this evening.
Bruce, before we move on, I do think I need to make a disclosure.
Okay.
I sit on a board of a nonprofit in Leucadia, and Brian Grover is one of the other board members there. I like him, but I don't know anything about this project from him, and I'm anxious to see what he's got, and I feel I'll have no trouble being impartial here.
Just for clarity for the public, what nonprofit is that?
Oh, that was the Leucadia 101 Main Street Association. I've served on the board since 2005, and I think I think this is his first year on the board.
And I think you said it. Did you say you'll have no trouble having an unbiased?
I have no trouble being unbiased in this one.
Okay, very good. And with that, we'll, Patty, you can start with the staff report.
Good evening, commissioners and members of the public. As Anna mentioned, my name is Patty Anders, and I'll be presenting the Sunshine Gardens project this evening. The project site is located at 155 Quail Gardens Drive and is bounded by multifamily and single family across Quail Gardens Drive to the west, multifamily residential to the north, and office to the east, and across Encinitas Boulevard to the south. The site has been historically used as a private commercial use, including a nursery with greenhouse and support buildings. The project site is a housing element site allocated to address the regional housing needs assessment for the city of Encinitas. It was referred to as Site 12, Sunshine Gardens. As part of the housing element update, the project was rezoned to the R30 Overlay zone shown in the hatching on the screen. The proposed applications include a request for a density bonus, design review permit, boundary adjustment, and coastal development permit. The project is exempt from CEQA pursuant to Government Code Section 655832H and I, which will be discussed further in the presentation. The project was reviewed against the standards outlined in the Encinitas Municipal Code, which includes the R30 zone development standards and objective design recommendations, the general plan, which includes the environmental assessment of the 2013 through 2021 housing element update, and the state density bonus law. Lastly, Government Code Section 65913.4, which states that local jurisdictions' discretion on housing projects is limited to adopted objective standards. Can you hear me okay behind the mask? Is that good? Okay. The project scope includes the demolition of existing structures on site and the construction of 140 unit apartment building with 21 low income affordable units, leasing and amenity spaces, and site improvements, including grading, parking, and landscaping. This image shows the overall site plan with the apartment layout and location of 2 access points identified as stars on the image. Through density bonus, the applicant is allowed 2 concessions or incentives and unlimited request for waivers. No concessions are being requested as part of the project, and 1 waiver is proposed. The waiver request is to allow for a 4th story for the parking garage. Though visually the first level will be below finished grade, it does not meet the city's definition of basement, where 50% of the perimeter walls need to be at or below 4 feet from the natural or finished grade, whichever is lower, so the waiver is being requested. The project meets all objective development standards of the R30 zone, including height and setbacks, private open space, and facade wall plane. The project includes parking within a 4-story parking structure pursuant to state density bonus law, Government Code Section 65915 through 65918. 204 spaces are required, and the project is proposing 245. The project is in compliance with all landscape standards. The project proposes a total of 38,034 square feet of landscaping throughout the site, and an additional off-site planting area includes 13,697 square feet, with a total of 102 on-site trees proposed with a mix of shrubs. A transportation impact study was prepared by Chen Ryan. The study concluded that the project would generate a net increase of 616 average daily trips, with 62 AM peak and 70 PM peak trips. The transportation impact study found that road segments and intersections will comply with the applicable circulation element policies. All setbacks, easements, and accesses have been adequately provided to the satisfaction of the fire department. The waste management for the site will be serviced at the east side entrance. As shown in this operations plan, the Stinger truck will move the bins to the east side loading area, and the project provides a backup area specifically for the vehicle to allow movement in and out of the site during peak pickup times. The boundary adjustment complies with the minimum lot width and depth requirements for both properties. A boundary line adjustment is proposed to transfer property between 2 owners, as shown here. The 2 images above shows the areas being transferred to and from the Sunshine Gardens property to the Quail Meadows site to the north. The requirement for a certificate of compliance to be recorded is included in the draft conditions of approval. The image on the bottom shows an area that is located within the existing reciprocal access easement. Due to the boundary line adjustment, the area identified in green will result in that portion of the easement being located on the Baldwin property. Since the posting of the agenda report, the commission was sent several email exchanges received by the adjoining Quail Corporate Center neighbor, who currently shares the access easement with the Sunshine Gardens. Staff is available to discuss if the commission has any further questions. The project was found to be in conformance with the objective design standards of the city's design guidelines, and the project meets the facade wall plane requirements of the R30 zone. This view is the corner of Encinitas Boulevard and Quail Gardens Drive, and the elevation along Encinitas Boulevard. This is the view of the project driveway entrance at Quail Gardens Drive. Various technical studies were prepared and are listed here, and staff from each discipline is available to answer any questions you might have. Pursuant to Government Code Section 65583.2 H and I, if a housing element site project provides 20% of the base density units as lower income affordability and does not require subdivision, the city must exempt the project from CEQA. The allowable base density of the project site is 103 units, and 21 affordable units are proposed. Therefore, the project is providing 20% affordable units, which entitles the applicant to an additional 37 units for a total of 140 units. In addition, no subdivision is proposed with this application. Therefore, the project is exempt from CEQA. A CPP meeting was held on November 23rd, 2020, where 20 members of the public attended. The concerns raised are listed here, and the final CPP report is attached to the agenda report. Additional meetings were held between the applicant and the owner to the east at the Quail Gardens Corporate Center. In addition, a combined Quail Meadows housing element site and Sunshine Gardens housing element site traffic meeting was conducted with neighbors on July 28, 2021. That included the traffic engineer and planning staff, as well as the applicants for both project sites to answer questions regarding traffic. A few corrections that were found in the staff report that I want to note for the record include page 3, the project description of the staff report incorrectly states 2 waivers are requested. However, the remaining staff report correctly reflects only 1 waiver is being requested. Page 7 of 28 references the North Vulcan Avenue, but should reflect Sunshine Gardens. And then on the resolution, page 2, under explanation of findings, references the Vulcan site, but should reference Sunshine Gardens, which identified a housing capacity of 84 and is proposing the 140 units as discussed. And with that, based upon the draft findings and conditions of approval, staff recommends approval of the Sunshine Gardens project, and staff is available to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, any questions of clarification from the Planning Commission? I think I'll have 1 or 2 questions if nobody else has got them. Pet spa, is a pet spa serving just the members of the residents, or does it actually have pet services outside of the building?
That's correct. It's only for the residents of the apartment complex.
Okay, so it's not actually a business per se.
Correct.
Okay, and on the going back to the Baldwin, the lot line adjustment, slicing off part of the common easement between Sunshine Garden and the Quail Garden Corporate Center. Does this require an agreement from Baldwin to maintain the easement, or how is that handled?
It's city staff position that it is a private matter because it is a private access easement. And as you have seen in the correspondence between the property owners of Sunshine and of the Quail Corporate Center, and I have been told that the Baldwin has been in conversations as well with some agreements that are being drafted between all 3 parties, in which they are requesting conditions of approval to be added. So we can discuss that when it gets to that point.
Okay. I think that's it for me for now. Anybody else? Any questions? Okay, we'll move on. We will open the hearing for public comment. Does the applicant wish to address the commission?
Yes, please. If I could share my screen here, and I'll be brief. Staff did a Great job summarizing our project. Can everyone see this?
Yes.
Okay. Good evening, Chair Ehlers and Planning Commissioners. My name is Brian Grover, and I am a 15-year Encinitas resident and the Entitlement Manager representing Sunshine Encinitas LLC for the Sunshine Gardens Apartments project. I will keep tonight's presentation brief and high level, as staff has done a great job summarizing the project's key components in their presentation. The project entails the development of a 140-unit modern apartment home community on a 3.43 acre site. The site is one of 16 sites included in the City of Encinitas Housing Element Update, which was adopted by the City of Encinitas on March 13th, 2019. As part of that Housing Element Update, the project site was designated with an R30 Overlay zone. The project meets the by right processing requirements established by Assembly Bill 1397 and would also utilize state density bonus law. A design review permit and coastal development permit, both issued by the City of Encinitas, are necessary to allow for development of the project site. A boundary adjustment is also required, as staff mentioned in their presentation, in order to adjust the northern property line with the property owner to the north. The community consists of 76 one-bedroom units, 58 two-bedroom units, and 6 three-bedroom units, for a total of 140 residential units, which would be built within a 3-story residential building surrounding a parking structure. A total of 245 parking spaces are planned within the parking structure, 41 more than required by state law. This equates to 1 space per bedroom, plus 35 additional spaces. Proposed amenities include a club room, fitness area, pool, courtyard, fire pits, social nodes with barbecues, and a pet spa. And yes, Commissioner Ehlers, that pet spa is really just a dog washing station. It's not open to the public. It's just an amenity for project residents. Of those 140 residential units proposed in the community, 119 would be market rate and 21 would be low income affordable residential units. The 21 affordable residential units would be dispersed throughout the building and would not be segregated from the market rate units. The property is located in close proximity to shopping, recreation, schools, and multimodal transportation options. The Town and Country Shopping Center is located within walking distance, less than 1,000 feet west of the project site. Moonlight Beach is 1 mile to the west. The Magdalena Ecke Family YMCA, St. John School, the Encinitas Community and Senior Center, Oak Crest Middle School, Ocean Knoll Elementary, and San Diego High School Academy are all less than a mile away from the project site. An NCTD bus stop, number 309, is located immediately adjacent to the property, providing future residents with access to alternative modes of transportation. The 309 bus line generally operates with 30-minute headways and provides a direct connection to the Encinitas Coaster Station, which is a half mile to the west of the project site. More than 25% of the project site is dedicated to open space, amenity areas, and landscaping. The largest open space area and amenity area is in the southern portion of the property. In working with the design team and with city staff, we were able to provide a nearly 1 acre shared public-private amenity space in the southern portion of the site, which is shown here in this rendering as viewed from westbound Encinitas Boulevard. The design includes native and drought-tolerant landscaping, and the public-private amenity shown here includes a food forest with a series of unique gathering spaces that can be used by both residents and the public. This is a rendering of the interior pool courtyard looking south toward Encinitas Boulevard. This area provides social spaces and amenities for residents. The courtyard includes a lower terrace with a pool and spa as illustrated here. The upper terrace includes space for lounging and gathering and includes a fire table, outdoor kitchen, and dining space. This is another rendering showing the shared public-private amenity space, this time looking east from Quail Gardens Drive. As shown in the rendering, this amenity space will include an edible paseo with fruit trees. The primary promenade and a secondary walkway meander through the landscape and lead to seating opportunities. The design uses both landscape and site furnishings to create a pedestrian scale and multiple opportunities for both residents and the public to enjoy the space. And then here are some additional renderings from various vantage points showing the design of the building, some of its key architectural features, and the associated landscaping. This image shows a planned version of the landscape and amenity areas. A total of 49,438 square feet of common and private open space is provided on site, averaging out to 353 square feet of open space per unit, which exceeds the city's requirement of 300 square feet per unit. These spaces include a public-private shared paseo and seating areas, a pool with spa and cabanas, shaded seating areas, outdoor gear storage for residents, a 2-story club room, co-working stations, and an extensive fitness area. The 245 parking spaces would be provided within a 4-level parking garage with 1 level subterranean and 3 levels above ground, as staff mentioned in their report. Both the parking garage and residential apartment building have been designed within the height limits established as part of the housing element update, 35 feet to the top of the residential buildings and an additional 5 feet to allow for rooftop equipment and solar panels. Our CPP meeting was held 9 months ago in November of 2020. At that meeting, we received positive feedback on the design of our building and the overall aesthetic. The concerns that were raised were largely centered around traffic on Quail Gardens Drive and our project's access and circulation. We have had several meetings with adjacent neighbors and property owners since that time and have made numerous changes to our project, which are shown here on the screen. Some of the more notable revisions to our project since that time include the addition of 2 new loading areas, widening the primary access point for better circulation and turning movements, working closely with EDCO to detail out our trash pickup, and working with staff to update our building layout and avoid the need for 3 setback waivers. We view all of these changes as improvements to our project design. We have also worked directly with the owner of the Quail Garden Corporate Center. You should have seen an email from him this evening. I think it was just right around an hour ago, so I apologize that was pretty close to this hearing. But he was outlining his request for several conditions of approval to address his stated concerns, which I have posted up here on the screen. We have reviewed that request and we will accept those conditions tonight. The City of Encinitas upzoned the property with the R30 overlay as part of the housing element update adopted by the city in 2019. Per the Encinitas Municipal Code, the purpose of the R30 overlay zone is to diversify the housing options available in the community and to expand opportunities for creating affordable housing. The project will adhere to State of California density bonus law by providing 21 low-income affordable residential units, which allows the project to increase its density in order to encourage the development of affordable housing. Importantly, while we could have requested various waivers and incentives under density bonus law related to height, setbacks, open space, storage space, etc., we elected to design this project largely within the city's design parameters. Our only waiver request is to allow for the provision of underground parking in our parking garage, which is necessary in order to provide adequate parking for our residents and guests. The project is in compliance with City of Encinitas development regulations and is considered a by right project that is not subject to the California Environmental Quality Act. Nonetheless, various technical studies have been completed in order to identify and mitigate potential environmental impacts. Our team has commissioned a number of these studies in order to better understand the impacts of the project and how those impacts can be mitigated. The city has included these measures as conditions of approval to ensure that they are implemented during construction and operation of the project. I have one request of you this evening. That is that you consider the overall merits of the project in the context of objective standards. I listened to your joint meeting with the City Council last week and the associated discussion of objective standards. We've spent a year and a half working with our design team and with city staff on this project since our first submittal in February of 2020. and we have arrived at a site design that is highly amenitized and provides opportunities for attainably priced housing in close proximity to shopping, recreation, schools, and multimodal transportation options. We have designed to the city's standards rather than using state density bonus law as a tool to push the height of our building or reduce our setbacks at the expense of our neighbors. We have shown full compliance with all of the city's objective standards, and the city staff report is reflective of that. Please send a positive message tonight that Encinitas supports inclusive housing policies. And with that, I just want to thank staff for their hard work and dedication in working with us on this project. It's been a pleasure working with them, and I'm available tonight along with my design team to answer any questions that you might have. And we look forward to your decision. Thank you.
See, are there any questions for the applicant? Such a quiet group tonight.
I do have a
Okay.
question.
Oh, good. Go ahead,
Okay,
Chris.
so I have a question regarding the project, that the Baldwin project to the north. And I talked to staff about this week, but they weren't sure of the answer. And I was wondering if there's any plan for walkability between the Sunshine Gardens project and the next project to the north. And we discussed there might be a problem with the grading that might not make it possible.
Yeah, permission to speak, Chair?
Sure, absolutely. We're still in questions of applicants, so
Okay.
you're still there.
Thank you, Commissioner Ryan. So a couple of ways to respond to that question. Number one, there is a pretty big grade differential between the southern end of their property and the northern end of ours. In fact, we're putting in, we're doing some offsite grading there and putting in a slope. So that's one constraint. We have worked with staff. They asked this question a while back if we could make any connections to their project. And we have been working directly with that applicant, Baldwin and Sons, on our frontage improvements so that they have a similar look and feel. We've had our landscape architects working together on that. And obviously we would have a sidewalk connection that runs the length of Quail Gardens Drive. Having a direct pedestrian connection though, even if we didn't have those topographic constraints, is difficult just because they're two private projects that need to be secured and have private amenities. And we wouldn't really be sending any of their residents anywhere through our project and vice versa. It's better utilized on Quail Gardens Drive for bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure.
Okay. Any other questions? I've got one. Guest parking. Can you describe with the gate and where the guests would park? I know you're over parked. How is it handled overall? Do they go through the gate, and how do they check in at that gate?
Yeah, so that was another thing that we worked through with staff. We had originally located a call box with kind of a buzzer in the middle of our main entryway. Based on comments received from staff and from the neighbors and from the property owner to the east, we decided to move that call box all the way up against the gate to allow more room for queuing, and more importantly, if there's, we analyzed a scenario where there were 3 moving trucks or delivery trucks or trucks at that main entrance. If one was in our move in, move out area, and then we had 2 in there with flashers, how would they be able to turn around without backing into Quail Gardens Drive? And having that call box buzzer in the middle of the turnaround was an impediment to a large truck making that movement. And so by moving it, those trucks are able to make a 3-point turn on our property, and there's no backing into Quail Gardens Drive, and there's also no queuing concerns with residents. So that's how we dealt with the call box and the buzzer. If you're a guest, you park in the parking garage just like if you're a resident, and you just you hit the buzzer and you get beeped in.
And what if somebody doesn't react? There's got to be a lag time. Wait, have you modeled the lag time? Because people don't run to their, they may have their phone, they may not. And let's say nobody buzzes somebody in. Does the car sit there blocking the entrance exit?
Yeah, so that's a that's an operations question. We wouldn't allow that to happen because it would be a constraint for all of our residents. We've also discussed leaving the gates open during the day. It's really to secure our parking area at night. And I believe in staff's planning commission resolution, the draft resolution, there's a condition of approval that if there are queuing issues, the city would have the ability to require that those gates be open all day.
Okay, but basically the guest parking's on the past the gate is the bottom line, and
That's
okay.
correct. Yes.
I want to understand. So
yep.
Other questions? Anybody? Susan, and then I see Kevin.
I have a question regarding drainage. I did look at the drainage report, and I noticed that what it said was that the drainage will have an ultimate discharge location to the Pacific Ocean drain at Moonlight Beach, and that would continue to be the case. And so I'm just wondering, with cars, how many cars? 245 provided spots. Sometimes cars may contribute to having effluent that's less than desirable with oils and so on. Is that going to be treated water? What's going to happen with that drainage water when you have all these parking with 245 cars and we're draining it down to the ocean? I'm concerned.
Yeah, no, that's a good question, Commissioner Sherrod. The short answer to that would be all of the water that is collected on our site before it runs off through the storm drain system out to Moonlight Beach through the Cottonwood Creek outlet is treated on site. It's a requirement under the hydromodification requirements of the city of Encinitas. And so we have a basin in that southern portion of our site where all of the stormwater is collected and treated, and then it's sent off site in a controlled manner, treated.
Thank you.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Kevin?
Thanks. Oh, I didn't even realize I was unmuted. Brian, I wanted to ask you a couple of questions. I'm looking mostly at the look of the project, and it's the details. I look at those very industrial planters behind you, made of basically what is construction material. How are you guys married to your look and feel? Because it feels very unlike Encinitas. I mean, I looked, so I don't know. Is this just like early drafts from one of the renderers, or are these what you're planning?
Yeah, but
I know. I asked. Let me correct this, Brian. I'll ask a question. Would you be amenable to friendly suggestions on items like that?
Yeah, no, and
it's early in the stage, nothing's built.
Yeah, we are open to suggestions. I don't want to agree to something tonight, but I will definitely agree to work with staff on the look and the aesthetic and the vibe of those planters. We have two different types, actually. I'm looking at myself in this image. Mm-hmm. We have kind of these ones, which are more concrete line planters, and then we have these, which are basically like a small Corgal. And my landscape architect is on the call and could probably answer this much better than me. But yeah, I thought that look went well, kind of having those two different aesthetics for the planters. But if there's concern over that, we'd be more than happy to work with staff. Once we move into construction documents and getting all of this figured out, exactly how we're going to build it. Working with staff on a better and more acceptable look for those planters.
Yeah, but I'll channel probably Barry on this. This is a by right project and only objective design standards. So, and we can't enforce
Bruce,
anything on it, certainly.
I'll make clear. I understand these are not actionable items, but we are.
How about this? If you guys can't work that into your I would be amenable to you working that into your motion if it's allowable under the objective design standards requirements. But if you're not, I'll just make the commitment to work with staff publicly tonight on the look and aesthetic of those planters.
I think we can only phrase it if we did in the form of the applicant has agreed to but we'll leave it at that for now.
Okay.
So I just want to make sure we're all on the same page that, you know, the design review does not go down to that level, that we specifically do not have that authority. And so we want to be very, very careful.
Yeah. Comment noted. We'll work on it.
I think you said 2 questions. Kevin, did you have a second question?
Not at this time, Bruce. Thank you.
And where did my... Oh, and so Brian, along the lines of another, and this is something that you volunteered during the CPP, and I noticed it wasn't in the conditions, and I'm just going to ask whether you were still supportive of the $15,000 towards improving the NCTD bus stop.
Yes, we are. The reason we don't have any further development on that is, you know, working with NCTD to improve that bus stop would probably take longer than entitling this project and getting this project under construction. If the city wants to engage with NCTD on that, we are more than happy to fund those improvements.
Okay, and then when we get into discussion, we'll have staff weigh in on what could be done, what the timeline might be, and understanding. I don't know that there's any basis again for us to compel you to do anything there, but we appreciate the goodwill of the offer. So, other questions? It sounds like we don't have any other questions, so we will move on to public comment. Dina, do we have speakers?
Yeah, we do. We have 2, and first up is Keith Harrison.
Okay. Who was the first one?
Keith.
Oh, it is Keith. I'm sorry.
Can you hear me?
We can't hear you, Keith.
Okay. Well, I only have 3 minutes, right? So I'm going to just go quickly here. First, I want to apologize for the volume of correspondence I submitted over the last 72 hours. It wasn't for a lack of effort to engage the applicant and staff before even the CPP and continuing for most of the past year. I'd like to emphasize what I believe is the biggest issue with this project, that the on-site vehicular circulation outside the building envelope is inadequate to handle the project's day-to-day needs without materially impacting the health and safety of its residents and visitors surrounding properties and/or vehicular traffic on neighboring public streets and the shared access easement with the Quail Garden Corporate Center. This is of particular concern given 3 main facts. 1, the proposed parking garage will have a vehicle height limit of 8 foot 2 inches, which does not accommodate most trucks serving the project: Amazon, UPS, FedEx, contract delivery trucks, water trucks, trash trucks, moving trucks, furniture delivery trucks, etc. Number 2, the property is located in an area with no street parking alternatives. Even the shared driveway with Quail Garden Corporate Center is a fire lane that doesn't permit stopping. And 3, the project has been modified from what it was presented at the CPP to include a gated entrance to its parking garage on the Quail Garden side, which will force vehicles turning into the driveway without gate access to turn around in the driveway. These factors make the impacts of the lack of on-site vehicular circulation more acute. Without enough area, the necessary ingress and egress of vehicles to and from the project will break down and spill over into the adjacent roads and the shared easement. Sunshine's proposed multi-purpose use of the driveways can be compared to the Leucadia Starbucks. That project was designed such that the required 24-foot backup area for parking spaces duals as the stacking area for the drive-through. Once cars begin to queue in the drive-through, there's no way for cars to get in or out of the parking spaces, and the intended vehicular circulation quickly breaks down. I understand the limitations of by-right projects and the objective design standards, and that our municipal codes lacking in some requirements, but it's easy to see how the lack of area for vehicular circulation is a safety issue, and the exercising of discretion in that regard can result in modifications that improve the project's functionality for everyone, including the project's occupants. The applicant got pretty far down the road before these issues came to light. Initially, Austin Wormers indicated delivery companies would know by the address to only send vehicles less than 8 foot 2 in height. When that was determined not to be true, Mr. Wormers indicated the issues could be handled with superior on-site management, which is never a good idea. I appreciate Brian Grover's acknowledgement that the circulation issues raised are real, but we obviously differ on the solutions. The design changes offered by the applicant are limited to what could fit without modifying the building footprint. Given that limitation, the loading spaces are not sufficient in size and inconveniently located. The circular turnaround on the west driveway is too small. There's no circular turnaround on the east driveway. Trash trucks will block egress lanes. Moving activities will encroach into fire lanes, etc. I mean, one just basic example, staff made the assumption on the moving trucks that they would just be the smallest self-serve moving truck that you can get from U-Haul, when in fact, people are going to get moved by like a United van line, some people. I know I did, where they put multiple people's belongings on a truck and it's a semi. Where is that type of truck going to park without blocking the necessary access? Thank you for your service, commissioners, and I look forward to hearing your perspective.
Okay, next person.
All right, our final speaker is Sheila Cameron.
I see you're on mute, Sheila.
Are we able to unmute?
No,
No,
we send a.
There she goes.
How about now?
Yeah.
We can hear you now.
Feel like I'm in first grade. Okay, good evening, commissioners. My name is Sheila Cameron. I live in Encinitas for 47 years. I attended every single meeting with regard to discussions of the housing element sites for Measure U. At every single meeting, citizens and voters were told the Sunshine Gardens project was going to be 86 dwelling units on this small 3.43 acres. So how do we now wind up with 140 dwelling units? That represents an increase of 2/3 more units than presented at all of the site meetings. I attached for your review a careful analysis of what is the big lie to the voters in this city regarding Measure U, where all of these housing sites were presented. This article, written for the Coast News in June 2020, called, quote, "One Plan, Two Faces," unquote, pretty clearly explains the sleight of hand perpetuated on the voters in the city. It exposes a very dishonest process and double dealing regarding all of the Measure U proposed housing element sites. It is attached to my letter, so it should be in your packet. The Sunshine Gardens developers claim traffic counts for 660 daily trips and 840 gross trips. Not true. Traffic is computed for residential dwellings at 10 car trips per day per dwelling unit. 140 units times 10, 1,400 car trips per day, a much more realistic figure. The commission cannot ignore the cumulative effect that traffic will have on this street. The Quail Gardens Westlake Encinitas Boulevard is already at a level of service E. That's one step from LOSF, which means failure. And you expect this corner to stay at level E? This is not realistic, nor is it true. Although it is not before you tonight, you know it's coming. Baldwin and Sons development on the proposed site just north of the Sunshine Gardens project was to be 225 units originally proposed and presented to the citizens publicly, repeatedly. It's now expanded to a 485 dwelling units times 10 car trips per day, 4,850. That is the real traffic count, and it is double the number of units originally presented to the public. Level F is coming. These decisions regarding the cumulative effect of traffic cannot and should not be decided in a vacuum. This commission cannot just consider each individual site and ignore the cumulative effect of the traffic on this street, which will spill out onto Encinitas Boulevard and other surface streets all over our city. I request that you deny this project as it is being presented to you, who are our community representatives on the Planning Commission. Remember, the voters of this city voted against Measure U, and clearly they were right. At the time of that vote, they did not even realize they were being asked to consider a plan with two faces and a lack of transparency in this city government. As you know, the law works as both a sword and a shield, and I hope you will please find the shield for the sake of our citizens. I agree with what Keith's comments were. Brian's a friend of mine too. I'm against this project, Brian. Thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes our speakers on this item.
Okay. Does the applicant wish to respond to any of the public comments?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Chair. So in response to Mr. Harrison's comments, he and I have been working through a lot of those issues that he mentioned, and staff and I have been working on those stated concerns as well. In fact, that's largely what we've been focused on for the last 6 months in terms of redesigning our project. And those 2 slides that I put up in my presentation with just kind of, bullet point after bullet point, I'd say we're largely in response to the concerns raised by Mr. Harrison. And I should also state that most of those concerns that he initially stated, I'm glad he brought them up because we hadn't thought through exactly how EDCO would service our project and exactly how move in, move out would occur. And it was frustrating to work through those concerns, but in the end, it forced us to really design our project appropriately for those types of uses. So I'm thankful in that regard. I think I mentioned in my presentation, since Mr. Harrison made those comments, we've added enough capacity to have roughly 4 or 5 moving trucks on site at the exact same time. Now, I will acknowledge the example that he raised about a United Van Line semi-truck. We cannot design for that, and we have not designed for that. I frankly don't know if someone showed up with a big semi-truck to move into their 800 square foot apartment. I don't know how we would accommodate that. I think our leasing office would probably tell them not to show up with that size of a truck. But everything else, Amazon deliveries, USPS deliveries, UPS deliveries, FedEx, trash truck, and even those things happening at the same time. And you can ask these questions of staff because we've had multiple conversations in this regard about multiple potential scenarios. That has all been accounted for in the current design of the project. And the other thing that I would say is, it looks like this project doesn't have a lot of circulation because it has a parking garage in the middle. A lot of that circulation is internal. I think this is one of the first wrap projects in the city of Encinitas. They exist all over San Diego County, and those projects are very adequately served by all of these delivery trucks and trash trucks. There's no issues. Otherwise, these types of buildings wouldn't be going up elsewhere. So I also, last point in responding to Mr. Harrison's comments, we did submit an access and circulation summary, which should have been part of your packet. And that's where I attempted to outline how we are dealing with trash pickup, how we are dealing with deliveries, how we're dealing with queuing, et cetera. So I would refer you mostly to that for specifics. And then related to Ms. Cameron's comments, I think I forget if it was 86 or 84, Ms. Cameron, the number of units that were allocated to this site as part of the housing element update. But that number was purely based on acreage, and it was not based on any kind of specific design. It was just something that was used by the city's consultant to plug in for RENA purposes. And I think as far as RENA is concerned, we're providing more affordable units than we would have had to provide if we built 86 units on the site. And we're also those are deed restricted units. We're also providing more market rate affordable units, affordability by design, than we would have otherwise provided with just 86 units on the site. So that would be my response to the 86 versus 140. I'm happy to answer any other specific questions.
Okay. Any questions? And Brian, you'll be on the line, and we'll call on you if we have additional questions which could come up. So, and I think that's it. So now we will move into deliberation. I'm sorry, I skipped staff. Anna, did you want to respond to any of the comments and make any clarifications?
I do not specifically, and I don't see any hands up from the other disciplines. So I would say no, not at this time, but happy to answer questions.
Okay, so let's move on to commission deliberation. Steve?
Yeah, you know, this seems like a really good project for us. This is an identified R30 site, which is intended for this type of project. I like that the cars are hidden by the wrap design. I think it's well located. It's close to retail, transportation, schools, job centers. You know, and the shared park space that's being offered back to the community, I think is a real bonus. And so, you know, comparing and contrasting this project to some of the others that we've encountered, this one seems like a real good solution. The only waiver that they're asking for is for a garage in the middle of their project that you can never see from outside the project site. So this is a tree falling in the forest, you know, no one's there to see it or hear it. So I really like it. I hope that we could take some clear action tonight and move this thing forward and pass it along. Those are my initial thoughts. Kevin, to follow up on the planters, I actually like the planters. I thought they kind of had a certain agricultural feel to them that harkened to some of the greenhouses and stuff that Encinitas is known for. But I would really, I think the landscape design is quite nice, and I would leave it to the applicant to choose that design. But those are my initial comments.
Fair enough.
Anybody? I don't see any other hands up. Anybody else want to hop in? I want to go somewhere if you guys aren't ready, and just I want to ask staff to, and I don't know if Scott Verbuff is on the line. Yeah, I see Scott's there. Scott, this is exempt from CEQA per se, but how is the environment protected? What is the prescribed mechanism for a by right project for any environmental conditions?
Yeah, as part of the Measure U proposal, the city was required to prepare an environmental assessment, which is essentially the equivalent of an EIR, even though it's not legally defined as a CEQA document. So when we get these by right projects, what we'll do is we'll review these projects against the mitigation measures in the environmental assessment. And those mitigation measures are actually provisions of the general plan, those measures. And the majority of mitigation measures essentially require the preparation of technical studies when staff determines that they're warranted. So for this particular project, the applicant did prepare the studies that were required by the technical studies that were required by the environmental assessment, and they went over and above what was required in terms of preparation of technical studies.
Okay, and then so studies, but how does that then affect or not affect the project? What's the mechanism, the enforcement mechanism, you know, beyond that? Or is there?
The technical studies will provide mitigation measures. They're traditional technical studies that you would find prepared or conducted for an EIR. They're essentially the same format. They look at very similar impacts, and they provide similar mitigation measures when they're warranted. So the mitigation measures essentially become conditions of approval for these by right projects.
Okay. So
through the chair, if I can just add on to that.
But I'll give you a chance at the end. Let me get through because I really think this is important, because we all see the CEQA is exempt, but much of it is being replicated through this other mechanism. I want to be really clear on how that mechanism occurs and what discretion we have, and then we'll certainly give you a chance to comment. So these become conditions of approval, and given the by right nature, Scott, what, do they have to be objective? I mean, the design review has to be objective, but the mitigation measures, if it's needed to reduce the impact or mitigate the impact, mitigate the impact of the project on the environment, does that give us the standing to then require it as part of a condition of approval?
Yeah, what we'll do is we'll use the same thresholds in the technical studies that we would normally use for a CEQA document, when it comes to paleontological resources, noise, air quality, greenhouse gas emissions. Yeah, we'll use the same thresholds in those technical studies as a basis for determining whether or not mitigation is required. And then again, those mitigation measures are provided as conditions of approval for the project. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it totally does. And so
okay.
the objective nature is really strictly to our design review approval, right? That we can't say we don't like the color, we don't like the metal material used on the planters, that kind of stuff. But on the environmental, it's even though it's not CEQA and they don't have to do an EIR, the studies still allow us to mitigate the impact of the project on the environment.
Yeah, and the studies do use objective standards, pretty much the same objective standards that we use in a technical study for a CEQA document.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the clarification.
Yeah.
I'm Brian, hang on. Susan, you have, I don't know if it was Susan, then Kevin, but we'll go Susan, then Kevin.
Okay, thanks. Well, I have a few general comments. I might have more later. My first thought was, this is the first multifamily project that I've reviewed that's within a half mile of transit and employment. And so it actually meets SANDAG requirements in that respect. But conversely, they're providing 41 extra parking spots, which chews up some area that could be maybe better used in other ways, considering they are close to employment and transit. And my thought would be, instead of having extra parking spots, they should provide some bikeway funding or some transit funding instead, because they are close enough. They're within that half mile of transit and employment. As far as traffic on Encinitas Boulevard, every day I go down Encinitas Boulevard. I live very close off of Encinitas Boulevard, and I take my son to school, and the traffic is steadily worse. So I'm not really sure that I'm too pleased about 60 to 70 more trips at the times of day that I might be riding my bike with my 10-year-old on it, on my cargo bike on that road. However, 20% affordable housing is a good benefit for Encinitas. The design review part I'll talk about later. So those are my initial thoughts. It actually is one of the better ones in some ways.
Okay, Kevin, and then Brian, I'll come back so you can comment on the environmental stuff. I thought they were going to comment more on environmental, but Kevin, then I'm going to.
Bruce, I'll go after Brian. Let's finish up your point.
Go ahead, Brian.
And I'm sorry for interjecting. Scott answered the question. I just wanted to point you to the specific conditions of approval, which do memorialize the mitigation measures outlined in those environmental studies. So if you look through the conditions of approval, they're in there.
I agree. So, okay, go ahead, Kevin.
Thank you, Bruce. I had some initial comments to make. And first off, I'll note something that Susan just pointed out. This is the first housing element site that's actually well placed next to a highway, next to mass transit. It's got a bus stop right out front. And it's awkward. It's like, where are the empty lots? They're usually not right in the center of things. So I felt this was very well placed and well built. Perhaps a little heavy on the stucco for my taste, but that's neither here nor there. Now, I just wanted to make a couple of points, things that weighed on my decision making on this, just on how I look at this. First thing I stumbled across was landscaping, which is going to be 78% drought tolerant, 50% of that native Southern Californian. On the flip side that I realized, and I want to bring this out just so anyone watching this realizes, there's a reason the Quail Corporate Center is down low, is because it's built at natural grade. This Sunshine Gardens apartment is actually going to be, we're filling in that hole 14.5 feet. And the building is measured from that height. And that's why so if anyone who thinks it's going to be tucked down in that hole is mistaken. It's going to be, 14.5 feet. So it's the 35 feet. It's totally how the R30 works. And I understand why it's there, because you can't drain things out of a hole. Anyone who lives here or has lived here for a while can remember just a year or two ago, we had a storm overflow that went and completely flooded the entire Sunshine Gardens property, up to the depth of a few feet. So, but I love the public pet access easement. I think that's great to memorialize these goat paths that our residents build. People are used to using it, and it helps integrate the project with the community. I had some concerns about the grading, not so much with the grading, but the amount of trucks. We're talking, nearly 40,000 cubic yards of fill and another 16,000 cubic yards that's going to be removed. It's going to be somewhere close to 5,000 truckloads in and out of the property. There's also going to be the preliminary grading, which is going to sit for, I don't know, 6-9 months would be my guess. Concerns if how that's going to be treated in terms of runoff. If it sits there, we might actually get rain this winter. It could happen. And I was going to ask, well, I'll wait a little bit, but I'm going to ask, I think Abe Bandigan, is he here today?
Yes, he is.
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah. The queuing issues. Now, who's gonna, let's say queuing issues do occur, who's gonna be watching to tell that happen? Are we gonna wait till someone from the public calls us? Are we gonna be monitoring that?
Well, we do have the option of, going after the honeymoon period of the project, 3 to 6 months after, and take a look at how the intersection operates, both the immediate access and the Quail Encinitas intersection, and see how it operates. We did add the condition, I'm not sure about the final language, but we did ask the condition to be added that if at any point we feel the left turn out of the project or the left turn in even causes the queuing or a malfunction at the intersection of Encinitas, we do have the option of prohibiting that left turn at certain periods of the day, even permanently. So it can be a peak period prohibition of that left turn in or out, or even a permanent, but in advance of the project going on the models, it seems like it's going to work with minor adjustment of the signal timing and the improvement that the project is proposing at the intersection. I'm sure you've seen the developer is suggesting addition of a right turn overlap at the southbound, the northwest corner that will enhance the flow out of Quail. But again, if at any point we feel like the queue is not functioning properly, if the left turn pocket doesn't have that is not operating properly, we always have the option of eliminating that left turn during peak periods or more.
Thank you. Now you might be able to speak to this, or perhaps not. Keith Harrison brought up, he was relating some of the cars backing up to the Starbucks in Leucadia with no 24-foot backup area. Do you know which area he was talking about there? Or was that?
You're muted, Abe.
Oh, I'm not aware of this email. Leucadia, Starbucks, is this the one by the freeway?
This was the one he spoke at oral comments earlier in this meeting. I guess you must have missed that. It's okay. Yeah, it's we'll dig into that a little bit later. I've got nothing more for you right now, but thank you, Abe.
Okay. Chris.
I'll pass the hand.
Yes, thank you. I have a few comments about various things. One thing about the parking spaces, I actually like the additional parking spaces because there is no on-street parking available in that area. And I would suspect that the businesses across the street, in particular by the Chins in that area, would not want people to park and then walk across the street to the apartment complex. So I do like that there are the additional parking spaces for guests. I have visited a lot of people in various townhome, condo, apartments, and there's always never enough parking spaces for guests. And so I really like the additional parking spaces for guests. I'm very familiar with the Starbucks traffic issue, living in that neighborhood. And I think that is, I mean, it could be proven wrong in the future, but I don't see this particular situation as similar to that one because I don't see the queuing being the same. At the Starbucks at particular times of day, that line backs up because they are waiting to place an order and then to pick up their order from the people working in the Starbucks. And that the parking lot is very, very small, and then people wind around and make it difficult to make a left-hand turn from Orpheus onto Lucadia Boulevard because they block the left-hand turn lane. And then also they can sometimes are blocking the freeway actually exit. I don't see this as the same kind of problem. The entrance is much further away from the intersection than that parking lot is at the Starbucks. The lanes are wider, and I think that things can be controlled with the traffic light there too. I don't see it being the same kind of situation as the Starbucks. And believe me, I curse that Starbucks on a daily basis when I have to go past that at certain times a day. I really like that the project offers 1, 2, and 3 bedroom apartments for low income housing. That's been my sticking point on another project. And I really like that it does have all 3 of those options so that there's low income housing for families. And I like that they're interspersed throughout the complex and they're also on multi-floors. And so I think that is great. I also really like the proximity to shopping, to parks, to the schools, to public transit. I think this is for the city of Encinitas, this is a really well-placed project. It's at a major intersection already with controlled lights, and it does have businesses, not just residential properties surrounding it. I generally speaking, really do like this project.
Okay. I'll hop in. Let's see. I actually appreciate several things about this project, but I have some concerns. And the first one I had was the average unit size is smaller than our current limit. And so the overall balloon is not as big as it could have been or maybe in other future projects down the road. I also like the fact that it's using one waiver, and I think it's using the waiver in a very good way. If the bottom floor of the garage, and it's only applying to the garage, and if the bottom floor of the garage had been a basement, considered a basement, buried enough to be a basement, then they wouldn't even need that one waiver, and there are no concessions. So to me, this could be the mechanics of this project could show that our current design standards easily allow the R30 with density bonus to fit in without waivers on what's not the easiest lot to build on. This is a oddly shaped and contoured lot, and I think they've shown that it's financially feasible to do it, and yet they're staying within the guidelines of setbacks, and so to that respect, I really applaud the developer. I also appreciate the fact there's no waiver for storage. I think this proves that our rather minuscule amount of storage we require per unit can be met within the R30 without a waiver. So and like Chris, I want to I said it a little differently, but the fact that the proportion of 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms for the affordable is roughly equivalent to the market rate. I appreciate that because I think that meets our fair housing obligations. And also, Chris, I'll support you in what you said on the on-street parking. I actually see, because there's no on-street parking on the main thoroughfares around it, I think, and we have a future much larger project coming next door. I support over parking this project because it's really staying within the height envelope completely. So it's still underneath the R30 height limit, and it uses that waiver for a very good purpose, to kind of for an exception, or the way things were measured with the number of stories. So all those I consider very good things, and obviously it's delivering on the lower income unit promise, not the full promise. Sheila has a very good point about Measure U and the fact that it was 86 technically lower income units to meet our RENA were allocated to this, but that's a fault in Measure U and how it was adopted and how it counted RENA. But we, at least are delivering a significant portion of those, although we'll have to make up the others in the future. The concerns. I think my first and main concern is the queuing. Abe, you worry me a little when you say it seems like it will work, or your words seems like it will work. That concerns me. I do see some parallels. I think I disagree with Chris here. I do see some parallels in that Quail Gardens Drive entrance. If people are waiting as guests to get in through that gate and they back up and one truck's in there, it could cause pretty good, it could cause people to have to back out of the entrance and into Quail Gardens. And keeping Quail Gardens flowing, in my opinion, is paramount, because it's already congested and will be worse in the future. Number two is the gating into the garage. I would love to find a way to either eliminate that or move it further into the garage structure, and maybe use that first floor of the garage to help alleviate the circulation. The access road width, I don't think Keith Harrison had time to bring it up, but I think in his written communications, he makes a very good point that in a mid-rise building, I think the emergency access, and that is an emergency access, is supposed to be 26 feet. So I'd like to understand why we can't do that. The size of the loading zone, it is short. I mean, there's no doubt about it. People will bring 24-foot trucks with 24-foot beds. Those are so common, and they will load and unload there. I agree we don't have an answer for a semi-truck, and I'm actually okay with that. And then the radius of the entry turnaround, it's at the absolute bare minimum. I looked at my cul-de-sac out front, and I think it's at 38 feet radius. And this one, and that's a standard California cul-de-sac, but you can get cars around there very easily. You can get semi-tractors around there. So I just want to get some reassurance that turnaround at 24 feet is sufficient and can handle backed up traffic. So those are my 5 main concerns with the project right so far. And I'll turn it back to anybody else. Everybody's quiet.
All right, Abe. I think I'll start first with 2 other questions. One, the seems work phrase, and the second one, the radius. So with regards to the level of service and the operation, the reason I mentioned I added the seams is that as you notice, the level of service is D, and then it goes to E, and then comes back to D. So we're right at that margin. So it's not like we're at B or C, and then we can't say with whatever margin of error that we have, it will work and there's no problem. So wherever you're at that verge of D and E, you are anticipating some delay and some congestion. We are working off of numbers. You know, we're in COVID times. Although the counts were older, we're pre-COVID. But then again, we always have that margin of modeling error. The models work off of a count that was collected on a certain day. How good that certain day that the data was collected is a representation of the actual traffic there. So there are always, errors in the modeling process, how well the model was calibrated. There are a lot of things. So that's why wherever we are at that E and we bring it back from E to D, we have that concern that, well, there's always a chance that the numbers, that specific date that the count was done might have been 10, 20% lower than a similar Wednesday on a similar week. So if that was the case, then the D that we took to E and then brought back to D might still be at the verge of E. So these are the cases that, makes us not being able to promise that, okay, well, this will be perfect and, we don't anticipate anything. But based on the model and based on the processes that are standard processes, evaluation models of synchro, the models show that the intersection will operate at D, which is acceptable to us and meets our general plan goal. So that's that. With regards to the circle radii, the circle is traversable. I'm not sure what the circle that you have at your property. This one, it's easy to go over it. You can easily make 3-point turns, 4-point turns if you have to. So there is no objective standard to say you have to design this circle for a furniture truck or anything like that. This is more of a convenience thing. This is more of a and I think the person who is more concerned about this is the developer himself, because if that doesn't work, or if for any reason it's an inconvenience to the residents, that would be a very, very bad presentation of the property they want to sell later on. So, but at the point we're at, we did check the study with 3 different truck sizes, not the longest. I think the super long furniture truck, I think if I remember correctly, had to make a 4-point turn, but anything up to that, UPS, regular delivery trucks, even moving trucks, they can make a 3-point turn there.
And when you say 3-point turn, you're talking about within that circle?
Correct, yes.
Yeah, in the 24. Okay, and if there's any other traffic or a temporary truck there, can they do that 3-point turn?
Oh, you're talking about this movement impeding the vehicles that are behind them?
No, I'm talking about, so if you look at the ingress, egress, and I don't have it in front of me right now, the ingress, egress analysis, and you look at, there was one drawing that showed the circle, and it had space for the truck on one side of the circle, a truck on another side of the circle, and a car ingressing and a car egressing.
Correct.
And so let's take most of that out of the equation. And if there's just one truck parked there, can a car or truck do a 3-point turn? Is there enough room to really negotiate with more than one delivery truck, or a delivery truck and a car coming in and out? And that's my concern.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I've not seen a turning template put on such a scenario where there is a car parked and the other one makes a 3-point. It's tough for me to say. Definitely longer trucks would be an issue for that scenario where there is a truck parked and there is another one that wants to make a 3-point.
And it's precisely my point that I didn't see a study at all or anything addressing that. So we can talk about this more. But see, I've got a couple of hands up here. I'm going to go with Steve.
Thank you. Just to continue the conversation or the discussion, Bruce, to your points, I'm not personally as concerned about the queuing. I don't think this place is like an in and out or a freeway off ramp where we should be providing for these, at speed, constant circulation of vehicles. I think the city, I think there's room in there. The gates are 99 feet by my measurement, back away from the back of the sidewalk. There's a lot of space there for 4 or 5 cars to back up if they were waiting to get into the gate. I think it will primarily come down to operational. It would be in the owner's best interest to have people moving and not clogging that area. So I think if there becomes an issue, they'll be the first ones to jump on it and come to a solution on it. So the rest of it, I guess I'm pretty comfortable. So I don't see this as the same as Starbucks in that front driveway. There are no other cars backing up into that space. So we're talking about the occasional van or something that might park on a curb or along the curb. So those are my thoughts.
Okay. Is there, and Brian's got his hand up, so I'm going to ask a question. And Steve, you're an architect. Maybe you can answer this too. Is there a fundamental reason that there couldn't be 5 feet added to the unloading, loading parking space there? Just to push it back a little further? Because it seems like we're talking about a likely truck size. And so, Brian, I'm going to direct that question to you.
Sure. Yeah, thank you, Chair Ehlers. We actually went through this exercise with staff. Several of our loading and unloading spaces were previously at 24 feet. And in working with staff and addressing Mr. Harrison's concerns and these concerns about length of trucks and fitting into our loading and unloading spaces, we lengthened all of them to 26 feet. I can tell you that for all of those loading and unloading spaces, we do not have any extra space to make them longer. But if I could share my screen really quickly, I do want to show you the exhibit that I think you were just referring to. And this was included in our latest submittal based on a request from staff. So, and I mentioned this earlier, we've analyzed some very unique scenarios. This is a scenario where one truck, whether it's a UPS truck or a FedEx truck or a moving truck or whatever it might be, is in this space, which is 26 feet long. And then another truck is here with its flashers on, and another truck is here with its flashers on. Can residents still come and go? And that was the intent of this exhibit. We've also analyzed, if you can see here, this is in our access and circulation summary, and this is getting to what Commissioner Dalton was saying. We have a little over 100 feet of queuing distance between our gate / call box and the edge of the sidewalk. And in that access and circulation summary, and I'll just scroll through it, I provide every example of a similar situation in the city of Encinitas. This one on the bottom of the page here is actually right up the street from us on Quail Gardens Drive. And you've got a call box that's 30 feet from the street. Again, ours is 100 feet with a gate. And I've never seen queuing at Quail Park. This one right here above is the Saxony Project, right off of Saxony, right next to the YMCA. 140 townhomes, exact same size as our project, but much larger units, more cars. They have 50 feet to their call box and 90 feet to their gate. We have 100 feet to our call box and our gate, and I've never seen queuing issues here. Here's Quail Ridge, another one in Encinitas Ranch. And then this one on the bottom is Elan Pacifico, which is actually a podium project. So probably one of the more relevant projects to be looking at in terms of density to ours. They have 120 apartment homes. And I mean, you can see just in the image, it's 30 feet to the gate. And I've never seen queuing issues here on Via Cantabria. So, and then I looked at one example in Carlsbad. The only reason I bring those up is, you know, it's made to sound like we are not providing adequate queuing distance, and we're providing more queuing distance than any of these other projects in the city of Encinitas. And we've agreed to accept a condition that the city has in your PC resolution tonight, that if there is a queuing problem, then we'll leave our gates open all day. So I understand the concern. I'm trying to explain how we've addressed that concern.
Understood.
And then really quickly, I'm sorry, Commissioner Doyle had a comment about the site being raised 14.5 feet. And I just wanted to clarify, we're not actually raising the site 14.5 feet. On average, we're raising it between 5 and 8 feet. So it is dropped into that hole a little bit, and we are utilizing that hole for our underground parking as well.
Okay.
I just
So-
don't want everybody to think it's going to be up on a 14.5-foot mountain.
So I want to avoid making this a discussion that's not just the commissioner. So, but I appreciate the comments, Brian. And just a little bit in rebuttal to your comment, I'll take Casa Pacifico in particular. What we looked at in that picture was just the entry to the residential parking lot. There is also a above ground, easily accessible delivery lot and guest parking with no gate that's immediately to the west of the site, pretty large in fact too. So it is no wonder you don't see much. In fact, I think you see a lot of people park out in that parking lot and not in their spaces underneath. So the underground is usually pretty empty. So I don't know that that's a fair comparison. And in fact, it points to what I'm really concerned about here is that there are 3 different uses, maybe 4 different uses, all on this one little circle and 100-foot stretch. And that's what I want to make sure that we don't cause something that would cause a queue that backs out or causes people to have to back out into. And I am going with abundance of a caution because of the Starbucks type situation. And I know traffic modeling is not perfect. So, if these were all and to go back, the one subdivision with 21 houses, they have parking in front of them for delivery. So Amazon's not stopping and parking in that 30 feet and then walking all the way into the house. Same with the other, most of the others, that it's the common concentrated usage all in one spot that I really want to make sure we aren't. And then I think there's a third one, which is guests come here and they have to wait for a call box response. So I'm going to go Susan and Stephen.
Okay, about the parking and the callbacks and how people come in and out. So residents probably have a clicker or a card or something, right? Residents, when they come in, they won't be waiting, right? They'll just use their method, their normal way to come in. So, so then delivery people, will they actually come through inside somewhere? Inside? Is there parking anywhere central? No. Well, then I think, yeah, this is a little bit problematic because they should be able to flow through that gate. They shouldn't be waiting outside of it. That's not going to work very well because, as we all know, online ordering has, just, really taken off, especially with the pandemic. And with that many residents, 144 units, is that what we have here? I think, in any given day, maybe all of them could get a delivery, right? And I get a delivery to my household. I have, probably a delivery at least every other day, it seems like, between myself and I have another person living in the house that I took in. I think that's a lot of delivery coming in. And even if it's a small package, it's a big truck is the thing. Sometimes a delivery will come, right? And it's not a big package. It's not a refrigerator or a sofa or something like that. Sometimes it is a big thing. So I think they need to be able to get in through the gate. These delivery people, they need to get past that gate to make their delivery. Would be a lot better. Some sort of a circular flow would be ideal, in my opinion, where they can come in and they make a round where they go to where they need to, make that delivery, and then they keep going and head out. Maybe a package delivery area or something. I don't know. Mailboxes that are bigger for oversized items. I don't know. There needs to be some better plan. I agree with what you're saying, Chair.
And of course, our goal is never to redesign here. Our goal is to just see if what's in front of us meets the criteria.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just trying to think, am I being unreasonable to say what I'm saying? And I'm thinking, well, I'm in my opinion, I always, as an architect, I'm always looking for a solution, when I see a problem. And so that's just me. Sorry.
Okay. Steve?
Yeah, I'll point out to Commissioner Sherrod, There is a dedicated stall outside of the gate where a delivery truck can pull in and park outside of the driveway lanes. So a van can do that, and they're not going to be delivering to each individual apartment. They're going to be delivering to a central box in the leasing office directly across the driveway. So I think, we're talking about the what ifs as if everything is going to happen all at once. If we've got visitors and 3 delivery vans. I struggle that we're trying to encourage people to be more pedestrian centric. We're trying to encourage development near transit stops or within a half mile of the train station. These are all the things that should say we should be relying less and less on the car, but we're spending our time debating or discussing how to handle these vehicles over, more so than the, quality of the living environment that these residents are going to have. I don't have as concern. And like I said, I think that the owners are going to solve any issue that comes up to them. They want their residents as happy as they can be. And I would support the project, in the condition that it is right now. I also think that we maybe are veering off course, that we're starting into a philosophical discussion about traffic and vehicles. And I'm not, is there an objective standard that they haven't met here that we could hold them to, that it seems like they've met the requirements that the city has outlined.
Chris?
Thank you. Just really briefly, I did read also that for the delivery, for like furniture delivery, move in, move out, the residents do need to make an appointment with the office in order for those trucks to have an appointment time in order to come to the apartment complex. I don't know if that eases anybody's concerns.
That's the operational approach. So, and I'm going to go next then, Kevin, just to respond to Commissioner Dalton on what I'm concerned about is the potential for queuing that could end up out on either cause one of 2 conditions. If the queuing were to cause a car to have to back out because the circle was parked with 1 or 2, maybe 1 car, 1 truck, and that they couldn't turn around and go out and they had to back out onto Quail Gardens Drive. I believe, given the operational characteristics that Quail Gardens Drive is under today, that could be very problematic. Number 2, I'm concerned if the queuing would exceed the 5 cars because a car comes in, is waiting for a guest to respond while a truck is also parked there, and then several more cars come in. Going back and reviewing this resident queuing on page 5 of the queuing analysis, access and queuing analysis, I do feel better that at least there's a link for about 5 cars in there. So that helps me. It's just, as I said previously, it really concerns me that we're putting a lot of stuff through that one little umbilical for the project. It's all coming in there. I guess there is the other access through the access road, but yeah, I empathize with what Keith Harrison is saying, because we're just trying to put so much there where none of the other projects cited as examples are anywhere near this. They have shorter queuing distances, but they aren't throwing the intensity in the same space on top of each other. So, Kevin.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm not concerned about the little miniature roundabout, as I'm not really even looking at it as a roundabout. I mean, it's 24 feet across. It's I can turn around in my Miata, but no reasonable person is going to manage to do a full UE there. I do see trucks coming in. I see them, a professional UPS driver or FedEx driver, I believe, is going to have no trouble doing a little back and fill to get out of there. In terms of deliveries, I'll point out that UPS isn't going to come 140 times in the day. It's going to come once, and he may have to park and offload 20 or 30 packages. So that's will the FedEx guy, but these are computer driven things. If they've got, 50 deliveries for that building, they're coming in one truck and one stop. There will be, of course, the smaller deliveries, if you get Grubhub or you call Uber and, you're waiting, Uber is waiting and you're not there, that kind of thing. So there are potential problems that can occur, but we have the escape valve in which we can open that gate, and suddenly, it does become an operational issue. I mean, I think if the management finds that this has happened enough time where people start complaining, I mean, maybe they can do a staging area inside the gate where other cars could come. It's not really, as long as they don't back up onto Quill Gardens Drive, I don't see it as our purview. It's not our problem. And I think management will fix it because it's in their best interest to do so. And that's really my only concern on this project. It's, I do see, there can be problems. And I think as soon as somebody does back out onto Quill Gardens, if that happens, I certainly hope the city and Abe will move quickly on this. And as I point out, though, I'm pretty sure that the management of this center will work on that before Abe gets a chance to do anything about it.
Okay, so I'm starting to hear a consensus there. Was there any concern about the width of the eastern access road at being 24 feet? Nobody has any problem with the
It would be great if we could get staff's or the fire department's take on that, just to the legality of it.
Yeah, we do have Hans Schmidt from Fire regarding the mid-rise comment.
Yeah.
Yes, I can address that. Good evening, Chair and Commission. In terms of your question about the 26-foot width for a mid-rise, first the building has to qualify as a mid-rise before that width is required. And this building, by our code, does not qualify as a mid-rise. And a mid-rise, the definition is 4 or more stories in height, between 4 and 4 stories in height, up to 75 feet. So 75 feet, over 75 feet is a high rise. Between 4 stories and 75 feet is a mid-rise. This is a 3-story building because the measurements are taken from the underside of the roof or the floor above the topmost space to the lowest fire apparatus access road level. And at no point, and it would be addressed from the side of the building that we would be taking access from. So actually on all 3 sides of access of this building, it doesn't meet the 4-story requirement, minimum requirement.
Okay, so you're actually saying that the fire definition of floors are different than the planning definition of floors, correct?
Well, because
we've got a waiver to allow the 4th story, and so that's a little bit at odds. And somehow I got to write it in my mind that I can have a waiver for the 4th story of the parking garage, but I don't have a 4th story when I come to the definition used of a mid-rise for the fire department.
That's correct. So the purpose of the 26-foot road width is for a fire apparatus truck, which has, it's a ladder truck that has stabilizers that come out, outriggers that come out. So that allows an additional 2 feet of space for other apparatus to go around it. And that's what the 26 feet is for, essentially. And nowhere on this building do we have the issue of the access or the meeting of, like I said, it has to meet the definition of mid-rise first, and it doesn't even qualify as that. Again, it would be from our access level to the road level to the top of the building, or the number of stories.
Okay, so like on the access road on the east side, you would not need to use stabilizers basically to access the 3 stories that are presented to that eastern side of the project. If that truck showed up there and they utilized the truck as a ladder in that function,
we would do that because there's a standard operating procedures that those come out. It's the way we measure it, though, under the code, that it would not qualify as a mid-rise, therefore does not require the 26-foot road width, right? So does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. In other words, it's a different definition than our planning department 4-story building.
Right, because we're taking it from the road height, not from grade, I guess. It's the road height where we're actually taking access from.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Let's see. Susan, you have your hand up?
I have a question for the applicant. I'm looking at section A and section B here on your presentation. I see 5 parking levels, but you're asking for a waiver for just 4. On section A, you're showing actually parking. That looks like 5 levels of parking, but on section B, I only see 1, 2, 3, 4 levels of parking. So I'm curious, is it 5 levels of parking there? It looks like it from what I'm seeing in the drawing.
Yeah, so it's not, but let me pull up that image for everyone's benefit here, if you guys don't mind.
And this is Anna, I will state that a story requires a roof above it. So that's probably where you're going with the story waiver.
I'm sorry, Anna, I couldn't catch what you said.
That's okay.
You didn't have the captions on for me, so I'm not seeing those right now, but if you can repeat that, I might be able to hear you.
Not a problem.
Your mask isn't helping.
Yeah, I'll try to get a little bit louder if this is better for you. The way we define a story, it's a ceiling and a roof above it. So if they have like what you're counting as a 5th story, it really is parking at the top, but that top level is not counted as a story because it does not have a roof. And that's our definition of story in our municipal code.
So it's 5 levels of parking, but it's defined as 4.
Correct. Yes.
Got it.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, it's not 5 full levels of parking because down below we don't have a full level of parking, and up top we don't have a full level of parking. So it's really 4 full levels of parking, but there are 5 tiers, with the last one being on the top.
But you have 41 extra spaces, so you maybe didn't need it, but whatever.
Okay, so let's see.
Real quick, can I just ask about that parking? It wasn't clear. So there is roof parking, like exposed parking at the top of a normal parking garage at the airport, for instance. So if I drive to the top of this parking structure, I can park outdoors on the roof. Is that my understanding?
Through
Brian,
the chair.
please.
Yes, that's correct. And there are solar panels on top of that.
Okay. Great. That's what I needed to understand. Thanks.
Anybody else? I've got a new one. It's a minor one on the landscaping, the 50% native. I'd like to amend that condition on page 8 of the resolution to be 50% Southern California native plants by area, kind of the standard wording we've been using. If I see, do I see any nods or no? Yeses or nos? I got 2, 3 thumbs up, and I don't know if any comments about that, whether it just clarifies it. I know long term we want to get to the point where we define, have a defined plant palette of what that means. But in the meantime, the closer we can get to the local native, the better for water usage and for climate.
Yeah, I'd strongly support that.
Another minor one, the boundary adjustment. I think in the findings, and Anna, this is a question to you. The requirement says all lots must meet I think, the State Map Act. And then the findings just say the lot, the resulting lot, not the resulting lots. And I want to make sure that I'm clear that both the Baldwin lot and the Sunshine Garden lot both need to meet all of the zoning requirements, correct?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, so if the commission agrees, I would like to just see the plural on the findings so it matches the wording of the state law. Kevin, you got a comment?
Yeah, since we're in the nitpicking area, I spent a lot of time going through the resolution itself, something that our chair taught me to do several years ago. This is the part that's remembered 10, 15 years from down the line. And if I could, if you have access to this, if you could pull up page 16 of the PC1 draft resolution. If you can, I have a copy of it open here. I could share it with or actually, can I just share mine since I've got it highlighted?
Go right ahead.
Let's see, there we go. Okay, so I've started automatically highlighting anything that says either may or shall. And this one, it's a minor one, but I think I'd like to adjust it here. And I would like to, I've talked to Anna about this earlier. I'd like to have a note made for code cleanup that we have some consistent language here. So the first one maybe has some discussion, HO4, Housing 04. The city may not issue building permits for more than 50% of the market rate unit, and it may not approve final inspections. Feels to me that this is something that should be a shall not, as opposed to a may not. And even more important on HO5 concerning housing, affordable units shall be comparable in exterior appearance, but neither the workmanship nor the products may be of substandard or inferior quality. I feel that should be another shall. Because I think these are two pretty critical units. This has to do with the fair housing concept. We want to make sure that the units that we're delivering to the affordable units is comparable. And I'd like to, if someone else wants to chime in on this, see if there's any discussion. What do you feel about that?
I will. I would ask, does staff have any comments as far as the ability to make those mays or shalls?
I do not see any issue with the first one. The second one, I do want to just look at the may. When I kind of said it out loud in my head, but neither the workmanship nor the products may be of substandard or inferior quality. So if you say it, neither the workmanship nor the products shall be, I guess that I think that accomplishes it. I don't see any issue with it.
And then,
I think one of the ways I was parsing that was, when we do housing units like freestanding homes, it's like we've always said the exterior should look as nice as all the other exteriors, but the interior is kind of you're on your own. So one way of looking at this, if everyone gets sub-zero appliances and granite countertops, does the affordable unit also get sub-zero appliances and granite countertops, or are they on their own? Do they get more pedestrian things?
Yeah, and I think historically we've done that. So
if we leave it as may, then they have that option. If we change it to shall, then they do not.
Okay, I'm gonna go me, then I think Steve, then Chris, and hang on. Oh, wait, I've got an interrupt from Barry. Barry, you want to hop in and
Yeah, the only thing I would note is I think that this language mirrors what the municipal code language is.
Yeah, and I think Kevin made the point that this may be a code cleanup question more than anything.
Right.
So the other reason I was going to hop in and illustrate H04 is may not, and that was, and I think this may be what Brian was going to talk about. that was used as an example by Fox Point Farms because of the way they had the units distributed throughout multiple buildings and the logistics of delivering all of the affordable before before you couldn't build in phases of building. So if you remember back to Fox Point Farms, we stepped off of this and made it a slightly different condition that I think we left discretion up to staff to when to approve the occupation for the first phase. So let me go to, and Barry, you still have your hand up. Was that all you needed? Okay. Steve, then Chris, and I think Brian, if you're still there hanging in, I'll ask you a question.
H04 seems like it's really geared towards multi-building projects. I don't think they're proposing a phased development, multifamily on a podium. It's very difficult not to build all of them together. So I'm not so concerned about H4, and particularly, Bruce, with what you've just said. I want to make sure the city had some latitude to enable the developer to build this stuff, these housing units. In H05, I kind of read that the same way I think Anna did the first time. That the changing the may to shall. I don't know that in this context it almost reads like you're saying the products shall be of substandard, and I think the word neither at the beginning of all this stuff kind of covers it, that neither the workmanship or the products can be substandard. And frankly, I'm not even all that worried that even if it was a GE refrigerator instead of a Sub-Zero, I think that the tenant is getting a great value to live in Encinitas close to the beach with a refrigerator and a great apartment project. So I don't have much invested in either one of these two conditions.
Okay, Chris?
So I don't know if H05 can be changed, but I would change the language and take out the neither if we want to do this, to say the workmanship and the product shall not be substandard or inferior, because that just makes more sense than just changing the word may to shall. Yeah. I think it's better grammar.
Grammar?
This is why it's good to have a lawyer on the,
that's my thought.
Commission. So Brian, I'm going to indulge, and Brian, did you have a comment about all this? I don't think we're changing anything yet, so.
No, thank you, Chair. I don't have a comment about this. I'm fine with however you want to word it. And as I think Commissioner Dalton said, H04, because this is one building, the issue with Fox Point does not apply here. The staff interpretation on Fox Point was on a building by building basis. H04 will apply. We have one building, so it's not an issue. Right. You can word this however you want. The main reason I raised my hand is before a motion is made and any decisions are made, I do want to remind you of something I said in my presentation, and as a way of, continuing to show our good faith in our discussions with Mr. Harrison, I had asked for, I think, 4 conditions of approval that he wanted included that were not included in the staff report, and I just don't want those to get overlooked before a motion is made. We are open to all of those. Mr. Harrison wants those included, and again, I just would like to show good faith by saying that we accept those. So long as they're good with you as a planning commission, I would ask that you include those as part of your motion tonight.
And when the time comes, those would be recommendations from Keith Harrison as presented by the applicant during your presentation.
Correct.
Is that how we put it? Okay. Okay, let's see. I think I had Susan next and then Kevin.
I think some of this wording comes directly from the state mandate, doesn't it, with regard to the 50%? But also we're up to our usual break time, and I'm wondering if we can have a break.
I think that way. How about I get through the hands I just said, and then we'll do a break. So Brian, you still have your hand up. Kevin, you're up.
I can't take my hand down because I'm sharing my screen. It's that's
okay. Well, that could be easy.
So I'm perfectly okay with taking a break.
Okay. And Steve, before the break, any comment you wanted to make there on the Stevens
No, if my hand's up, it's by mistake. Sorry.
Okay. So I think the consensus I'm hearing is leave HO4 and HO5 unchanged, but consider it at cleanup time. And add it, Anna, if you can add it to the queue for code cleanup as a discussion. I've seen general agreement. And with that, why don't we take a 10-minute break? Will that work? It's 8:11 right now, back at 8:21. Remember, your mics may be live, so be discreet.
Hey, Kevin, are you there?
Yes, I am, Steve.
What days or when does Lucadia 101 meet?
We meet the fourth Tuesday of every month.
Fourth Tuesday. What like evenings or afternoons?
We switched to 5 p.m. now.
Uh-huh.
We had used for many years. We met at 8 in the morning, which was not really conducive to a lot of working people.
Yeah.
And it was in reaction to a former board member who had to meet early. I'm not a morning person, so we've moved everything to 5 p.m. and we've had much better attendance.
Okay. And what day you said? Fourth
Tuesday.
Tuesday. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to want to maybe come visit
Yeah,
your
you would be totally welcome. I'll add an invite to you next time, and
okay.
we welcome guests.
Good. Excellent.
Oh, I thought you were going to compare and contrast with me that I wouldn't be, you know.
Bruce, if you would like to sit in.
I have enough to do. Thank you. You guys are doing great without me, and we don't want to interrupt it.
Oh my God. I'm like way too much of a volunteer. I'm a poll worker this year, and I must have checked the wrong box because I thought I said North County Coastal, but I'm out on the other end of Escondido.
Oh no.
And my training was 2 days of training was out in Valley Center.
Oh.
And all day training with an hour ride each way.
Right.
And it's it's good for me to get out and spread my wings.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm hoping everyone just votes beforehand. I don't expect we'll see a lot of people in person.
Right. Right.
For some reason, the host has disabled my video, so you guys, someone needs to address that.
Oh no.
Okay.
There you are, Susan.
There you go. You're back.
Okay.
Yes. We have everybody back. So let's continue deliberation. Were there any areas we haven't discussed that need discussion? Anybody?
I have one thing. I would like to see these 4 new conditions. With such a volume of mail, I honestly, I'm looking at my computer. I can't turn them up right now. So if they were to be the 4 additional conditions that were proposed by Mr. Harrison, that Brian Grover says they agree to, can we just staff? Do you have access to that? Thank you. Oh, Brian, you did it. Excellent, man. Just give me a moment to read through this.
Mm-hmm.
And this was composed. Brian, I'll ask a question of you. This was composed by Mr. Harrison?
If you would like.
That's okay.
I do have the email directly from Mr. Harrison that I can also pull up.
But yes, Commissioner Doyle, this is straight from the email from Mr. Harrison. So you can either refer to his email or my presentation. It's the same.
I don't really feel I need to. This is the best thing. I always like it when neighbors work together. And here it seems like, the neighbor who is feeling aggrieved has now made a proposal and you've accepted it. And I don't see any issue past this. And this would be included in our conditions of approval. So I am quite pleased with what I see.
Okay. Yeah.
And everyone is comfortable with removing SCB 14? I have no issues with it. I'm quite familiar with that, the mail and the logic behind it. And it seemed to be entirely backed up by the original easement documentation that was provided by Mr. Harrison.
Hang on. SB.
If you look at the combined 902-21 from 12:46, 3 p.m., it's one of our last pieces in, and you just scroll down to page, or actually you don't need to scroll, but his argument is very clear, and on page 3, paragraph 5, says the use of grantor's property, which clearly states that the grantor cannot grant new rights to dedicate. So removing SCB 14 totally makes sense.
And to be clear, SB.
That's in our draft resolution. I'll pull that up.
SCB 14 is, yeah, I just had it here. So many screens open.
Hold on, I'm all zoomed in right now.
The applicant shall dedicate an emergency access easement to the city of Encinitas over the easterly access easement to coincide with the existing easterly reciprocal access easement and any other areas that are required for emergency access. That's what I have as SCB, as in boy.
And the original easement very clearly states that the applicant cannot dedicate any. They don't have the right of dedication.
Okay.
And I can share that if Brian, can you turn off your share?
Yep.
Okay, let's see.
And striking that condition was one of the 4. Is that what you're saying?
That's correct.
Okay.
So if we accept the third condition, then we're striking an existing condition, SCB 14.
Okay. Any other topics or areas? I think I'm seeing consensus, and we're probably getting close to making a motion.
That's my impression.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we've all, I don't think I got any traction with asking for a larger loading dock, and I don't think I'm seeing consensus on the queuing being a problem. So I'll make a motion because I have the notes written down, but if anybody else wants to do it, you can do it too.
I was going to suggest that you entertain us with a motion because I've watched you taking notes and I know how careful you are.
Susan, you've got your hand up.
Well, I'm still on the resolution under drainage conditions. I see something about erosion. I see something about the system. I don't see anything about the treatment. Flood control, hold harmless to the city, flow rate. And then there's nothing about the treatment in there. I think mitigating or something, I don't know why there is nothing about the treatment of that water in this.
Have you checked the bottom of page 21, 22, where they've got the stormwater pollution control? That's where all the best management practice stuff is.
Yeah, I'm on page, I'm looking at page 20. So is drainage conditions, it starts on page 19 and goes on to page 20. And I just don't see anything about the treatment of that drained water.
Yeah,
and
okay, so staff, do you want to respond?
Yes, it's condition SCB number 2. This is a priority development project. So all the requirements for the regional board for pollution control and hydro modification will be required.
Is that in this resolution somewhere, or what page number?
It's condition SCB number 2.
Page 11.
Okay. Let me look.
And then do the stormwater conditions on page 21 also cover some of that?
That is correct.
Looks like Storm 05 delves into that.
Well, and Storm 03 is BMP.
So treatment and flow control facilities shall be detailed on plans. True, but the stormwater also goes into the how this is a priority development project for purposes of stormwater quality. So it mimics the wording in SCB 2. So I'm looking at page 21, Storm 05. The last sentence is kind of key, I guess. A stormwater treatment facility maintenance agreement shall be recorded against the subject property to ensure maintenance of the BMP, HMP facilities in perpetuity. I feel best practices are going to be met here.
So any other questions?
I was just going to say, I think engineering is one of the most regulated aspects of this project. I don't think there's any question that they'll be held to treating the water before it's discharged.
Yeah. So, okay, if I don't have any other comments, I'll make a motion that we move approval of project multi 003629-2020 per the resolution presented with the following modifications. 1, the 3 corrections from the staff presentation. Number 2 would be the 4 conditions of approval per the email from Keith Harrison and as presented by the applicant, which includes striking out of SCB-14. Number 3, that SCA2 be modified to state 50% Southern California native plants by area. Number 4 is, if we can do this, and Barry asked, please comment if this is something you don't want me to add. Just add a condition to capture the up to $15,000, I'm trying to say optional contribution towards an NCTD bus stop improvements, or make it voluntary on the applicant to take him up on his offer and work with him to capture that 15,000 towards the NCT bus stop improvement. So make it voluntary and so it's basically this condition is on us to work with him to take him up on that offer and not bind upon the applicant. Number 5 would be just on page 26 that the in the findings, or I'm not sure on the no net loss findings, just make sure it states all lots in the findings to match the condition. And those are the 5 changes I had. Did I miss anything?
And just one correction for that, you mean the boundary line adjustment findings, not the no net loss, correct?
Oh, you're correct. Sorry about that. Yeah, the no net loss was in that first one, I think I stated. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll second that.
I'm not sure if there's any comments from engineering regarding the removal of SCB.
Yes, thank you, Anna. Engineering would prefer that SCB 14 remain. Just to clarify what's intended by that is that the westerly portion of that shared easement, the portion that is the applicant's property, would dedicate to the city an emergency access easement. It's basically matching what's on Keith's Harrison side on the other side to complete the emergency access easement.
So how do we write that with what the private agreement that's going on between Brian and Keith in this case?
I believe it remain as is. This is a separate easement, public, dedicated to the city, and has no part of the private agreement.
Brian, you want to comment on this? And I don't see Keith on the line, otherwise I'd have him comment too.
Yeah, Keith told me that he had to drop off, but we don't have the right to do that. Even the portion of the easement that covers our property, the Sunshine Gardens property, Keith Harrison has all of the rights, and we are not able to grant that easement. And that's what Commissioner Doyle was mentioning, as Keith stated in his email. And so I'm just trying to respect that. It has nothing to do with our, obviously we want emergency access for city emergency access vehicles down that easement driveway, and the city has the ability to utilize it for those purposes, but we just don't have the rights as the applicant to grant that easement. So we would not be able to satisfy that condition of approval. And I did not know that. Keith had to inform us of that based on the language in the easement.
That was that whole long email. So
yes,
Jesse, do you understand and concur at this point? Because literally we can't compel him to do something he can't legally do.
Understood. Is it my understanding that that agreement is going to be quit claimed and a new easement agreement recorded that would allow the dedication to the city of Encinitas? Or alternatively, again, I understand Mr. Harrison isn't here, but if there's a way that he would allow the dedication to occur, we just want to protect the city and emergency access. We realize the road's already there and signed. We just would like to have the easement if we can.
Yeah, but I agree with, I think, Kevin's earlier comments. I don't see how we can, given the language in that easement agreement. So, I mean, we have to wait for a project on Keith's side in order to ask for that easement language, and actually have to have a nexus with a reason.
I'm hoping that our lawyer can speak to this.
Yeah,
Barry, how you doing?
Yeah, I think what I would propose is that you can accept the conditions that have been proposed, with the caveat that we'll work with the city attorney's office to make sure that the city's interests are protected. And we have had some conversations about whether it was necessary to have a dedication for this fire access, and I think we were comfortable without it, that the city's interests would be protected. But if you have that caveat that we can work with the city attorney's office to resolve that, I think that will get us where we need to go.
But ultimately, I agree with all that, but don't we also have to have some wording in there that says this is subject to cooperation by the neighboring property owner? That the current easement, that we cannot compel either Sunshine, or we can't compel Sunshine.
From my perspective, the issue is, do we need to have the dedication in order to satisfy our access to the emergency access? And I don't think that we do. So that's that's the issue, is that I think we're comfortable with removing the condition with the caveat that the existing situation is sufficient to guarantee the city the fire access, which we think we currently have with the reciprocal easement. Now, I have not looked at the other conditions in terms of what they might do with a reciprocal easement in terms of modifications. And if they could build that into that, that would be great. Then we have double coverage, if you will.
Okay, I misunderstood where you're supporting it's okay to delete it, but add a caveat that the to work with the city attorney on protecting the city's interests in that easement. Okay.
Yes.
So it's a much softer version of SCB 14. It basically says work with the city attorney to accomplish that.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we can address engineering's concerns and fire department concerns, and I think we can, but I want to make sure that we have that option.
Okay, and so as a friendly amendment, I'll accept that to the motion. Steve, I think you seconded.
Yes, I'll still second that.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? If not, we'll call the question.
Great. Chair Ehlers,
Aye.
Vice Chair Doyle,
Aye.
Commissioner Sharon,
Aye.
Commissioner Dalton,
Aye.
and Commissioner Ryan.
Aye.
Okay, the vote passes unanimously.
Cool. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that brings us to future agenda items to be added by planning commissioners. I think we talked earlier.
We have.
Keith Harrison, I would like to say that we should talk about CPP and look at the laws sometime to make sure that the CPP is timely. Because I know from the inception, it was actually originally conceived that it would be before the first application was accepted. And I thought there was language in there, but it sounds like in practice, it's gotten later and later, which is always the temptation. But the advantage of it is always to have it earlier. So if everybody agrees, we will have staff agendize that.
I would support that.
Okay.
I'm fine with that as well.
Any other additions to future planning commission agendas? Okay, let's move on to planning commission reports. Are there any planning commissioner reports?
I'll mention one thing. Get your votes in, get your ballots in. There's an election coming up. It's easy to forget because it's not when elections usually come, but it's important. Doesn't matter which way you're voting, but vote. Last I heard, so far, the registrar of voters has already received 550,000 mail-in ballots for this election this is San Diego County. This is out of 1,950,000 sent out. So we've got more than a quarter are in. It's, California does these things right. So, but only works if you work it.
So, and then the other thing, I don't know if Anna, are you going to report on the Prop A action that occurred in court?
Not this evening. No, I was not.
Okay, well in that case, I'll do it. Just so everybody, the Planning Commission knows, on August 26th, Judge Moss ruled in favor of the proponents of Prop A and ruled against both the city and HCD, and did not grant declaratory relief from Prop A for housing element, future housing element Prop A votes. And it's all over the paper, or will be all over the paper soon. And you can read the judges. I won't editorialize beyond that. So
fair enough. I'll keep my eyes out.
And let's see, city planner reports.
Yes, thank you very much. So we have had an appeal of the denial of the Papayan residence, which was on 1222, 1230 Hermes Avenue. So we did receive an appeal on that. And then we received 2 appeals on the denial for the Encinitas Boulevard Apartments housing element. And then I believe also the upcoming APA conference in September. I believe we have, I'm not sure how many commissioners attending, if it's all or not.
I don't think so, because it's all virtual.
Okay. So just a reminder for the APA
Yeah.
conference, and then that's all I have.
Okay, good. And with that, adjournment. So thank you, everyone. And our next meeting will be on September 16th. So this meeting is now adjourned to the regular Planning Commission meeting of September 16th, 2021 at 6 p.m. Thank you.